think I'm going to start a clown shoe business, but it's no small feat. Hey, shh. Welcome back to Not Another Needless Sequel, where we
I'll
watch
start
movies.
again.
Welcome back to Not Another Needless
No.
Sequel.
Try again.
Welcome back to Not Another Needless Sequel, where we watch movies and propose unnecessary prequels, sequels, reboots, and remakes. My name is Kane. Today I have with me Kelsey.
Is it just me or is it getting crazier out there?
Things are tense. This week we saw what you get when you cross a mentally ill loner with a society that abandons him and treats him like trash in 2019's Joker. So what do you think the story was?
It's about how Arthur, better known as Joker, not the Joker, everyone, Joker, which is a very popular Batman villain. It's his origin story.
It's obviously, if you've seen or haven't seen the movie, like it's quite different than anything you might imagine as the Joker's origin story. It starts off showing you this character, Arthur Fleck, who works as a party clown. I mean, the opening scene, he's putting on his clown makeup and staring in the mirror, and he's like forcing himself to smile. So it's really depressing.
The entire opening scene before it says Joker on the screen is tragic.
Yeah, so as a party clown, he's not just hired for parties, he's also hired to advertise for businesses, and he's swinging a sign around a business, and these kids run by, steal his sign, he's chasing after them, and he catches up to them because they allow it, and they smack the sign into him, breaking it, and then just beat the shit out of him for zero reason. And like, I guess it's due to their acting, but it felt so personal.
Yeah.
They were like gonna kill him, it felt like.
Yeah.
And it's that thing that, and this isn't a criticism necessarily, but I see it in movies and I always think about
criticize.
Like, I feel like when they're doing big cities, they make people in these cities so mean for no reason. Like, they go out of their way to be mean.
I think that something the beginning of this movie does really well is it sets the tone for the entire movie. Yeah. There's very like eerie music that's also sad, and not only it shows Arthur at his work, but then it shows him, go home and he feeds his mom. Well, first he sees his therapist who prescribes him some medications. It's like state mandated visits.
I mean, you can tell the office too of the therapist. It's not a nice office. There's not a place for him to lay down and talk or nothing like that. Like it's this file filled, basically a fucking closet.
Yeah, I just felt like it really sets the tone for the rest of the movie of being something you've never seen before. A lot of the times when you see Joker, he is laughing. He's
happy in whatever he's doing.
Yeah, and he's definitely not in this. He does have a condition that makes him uncontrollably laugh.
Yes, and that, they say, is due to, like, you see at one point he hands somebody a card that says and explains the condition, because when you're laughing like that, it can cause you to, like, not be able to breathe. And you can kind of see that when he starts laughing, he'll, like, choke up. But so he'll hand people a card because he can't speak, and it explains that this condition can happen to people with brain injuries or certain neurological conditions.
Yeah.
And you come to find out he has a brain injury causing this.
Yeah, it kind of happens later on in the movie. I just felt like, because the day after he goes to work and he's getting dressed and a guy comes up to him at work, his name is Randall, and Randall gives him a gun because he's asking him if he really got jumped, and he says yes, so Randall gives him a gun. And then Arthur goes to meet with his boss after that, and his boss says, you have to pay for the sign or I'm taking it out of your paycheck.
Yeah, and he explains to him I got jumped, and he's like, oh yeah, who would want a sign? Like, his boss doesn't listen to you. See, I mean, like you were saying about it setting the tone, his boss is shitty to him, his coworkers are shitty to him, the city is shitty to him.
All of his coworkers except one are rude to him.
Yeah, the therapist doesn't listen to him. His mom makes nasty comments too that are like very subtle.
Yeah.
He has just nobody in his life. He does have a moment in his building as he's heading home where he meets his neighbor, Sophie, and she has a very normal, like, interaction with him where they're like, oh, this building sucks because the fucking elevator they're on is, like, shaking and power's going out, and she, like, puts her hand up to her head, does, like, the fake gun, like, blowing her brains out, Like, oh, it sucks. And based on that single interaction, he starts stalking her because, again, he's got a lot of mental illness and he doesn't have anyone else in his life. And he starts believing, and it happens a few times through the movie, he believes he's dating this girl, but it ends up not being real. I mean, we'll talk more about that in a little bit. He is eventually fired from his clown job because at one of his gigs, he has the gun, falls out of his pants.
At a children's hospital.
And his boss tells him that the guy that gave him the gun, Randall, goes and tells the boss, oh yeah, Arthur came asking me for a gun. And obviously Randall gave it to him unprovoked. So that's a lie. And granted, he shouldn't have had it there. But also...
I also think he was carrying it at that moment in time for protection.
Yeah, they mention the whole time. You can hear news, you see it. The city is being destroyed by several things. Like, people are unable to find work. There's people striking and leaving trash in the streets. There's super rats. Like, the city's doing horrible, and he does need protection, but they don't care. He's on his way home after being fired, and he's on a subway, and he sees a woman on the subway. She's being harassed by these 3 Wall Street guys. Did want to say, this unnamed woman on the subway that is harassed, she actually shows up far later in the movie at a rally wearing a clown mask, and I never noticed that until I read about it and I looked for it.
I didn't notice that either. He starts laughing uncontrollably, and one of the guys is singing. They come over and they just start to beat him up, and it's 3 men versus him, and they just kick the shit out of him. And during the fight, he pulls into his pocket and shoots one in the head. So he ends up murdering all 3 of these young men.
But it's also like, if you're gonna start assaulting someone on a subway, what do you expect might happen? Now, granted, he chased the last one down. That's not self-defense. But you're attacking him. You're beating him. You're kicking him. Like, you could kill him.
At that moment, I wasn't surprised. You see how shitty people treat him for being different, or because they don't like him or they don't relate with him. And this was his turning point / the moment he snapped.
Yeah. So after he hunts the last guy down with the gun, like, he realizes kind of what he's done. He kind of panics, but he runs to this bathroom and he has like this breakdown where he's like dancing. That scene was improvised by Joaquin Phoenix. Like, he normally in the script, he just went into the bathroom, hid the gun and washed his face and talked to himself. But Joaquin Phoenix just started doing that dance, and I feel like it was really good because they make a point to show that he likes to dance.
He's a really good dancer.
Yeah.
Arthur imagines a lot during this movie, so it's hard to tell sometimes what's real and what's fake.
Yeah. Part of that also is at some point in the movie, they tell him that his mandatory therapy is just going away because they cut the funding, which again shows the city is doing shitty, and he is not getting his meds anymore. Like, he asks, what am I supposed to do about my meds? And she doesn't answer. And so he just stops getting meds, so he's not taking his meds anymore. That doesn't help. And again, he is imagining this relationship with this woman, Sophie, and he invites her to go see him do stand-up. So he goes to do stand-up at this comedy club. He is doing bad at the stand-up. He thinks he's doing better. He thinks Sophie's there laughing and actually enjoying it. And you can kind of tell because the laughing he's hearing sounds very much like a laugh track. And then, of course, you can tell because later that talk show he likes to watch, Murray Franklin, they show a clip of his stand-up on there, and they're making fun of him. And they're saying, like, oh, this guy thinks you can just be a comic if you just laugh a lot, then people will laugh at your jokes. And it's really fucked up.
Yeah, I think Murray making fun of him was where I figured that was the final straw. He's fully lost his marbles. And I also thought Murray Franklin was rude because the first joke wasn't really funny. He was really nervous having his laughing fit, but I actually liked the second joke he told. I didn't write it down and I don't remember what it was, but I do remember thinking like it wasn't a bad joke.
It is quite depressing because when he first hears that his video is being played on Murray Franklin show, he is so excited because this is like a guy he looks up to. The first time you see him watching it, he's like imagining if he got to be on the show and got to talk about how good of a son he is. He takes care of his mother. He imagined Murray Franklin like bringing him on stage and telling him how proud he is of him and all this shit because he has nothing else in his life.
And people accepted him in his thought for being different and weird. Yeah.
And then, it turns out they only are playing his thing to make fun of him. Throughout the movie, his mother, Penny, keeps mentioning how she is writing to Thomas Wayne. He's obviously super rich, if you know anything about Batman, Bruce Wayne's father. And Thomas Wayne is going to help them because she used to work for them, and Thomas Wayne's running for mayor. Arthur ends up reading one of Penny's letters to Thomas Wayne, and this one actually reveals that Penny is saying Thomas Wayne and Penny had a relationship while she was working for the family, and Arthur is Thomas Wayne's son, but it had to be hidden and covered up. But now she's like, we need help, your son needs help, and he's super upset. He confronts his mom about it. She is super upset about him confronting her and reading this letter. Eventually he ends up going to talk to Thomas Wayne. He confronts him in a bathroom, and
this is after he went to Thomas Wayne's house and spoke with Bruce, and Alfred pulled Bruce away.
Yeah, that was a strange scene. I mean, it's this thing where
I think it was just a way to introduce Bruce Wayne to everyone, be like, look, it's Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, it's this thing where he's talking to Bruce Wayne and he's not doing anything wrong. He's doing magic for a kid, but also you approached his house, which makes it feel weird.
Yeah.
And then you stuck your fingers in his mouth and made him smile. Real weird.
Yeah.
I think Bruce maybe should have backed up. Has zero survival skills.
Yeah. You could tell he's just a very sheltered rich boy. But yes, he does confront Thomas Wayne, and Thomas blows him off and says that his mom's a liar and that he's adopted and she was put away in Arkham Asylum.
Yeah, and so that argument in the bathroom between them was improvised by Joaquin Phoenix and Brett Cullen. And Brett Cullen strongly believed that Arthur is indeed Thomas's son, and he played the role with that fact in mind. And so even though he tells him no, if it's true, he's obviously not going to admit it in this moment.
Yeah, he would never admit it.
Yeah, and, Thomas Wayne hits Arthur in the face and is like, if you ever touch my son, I'll fucking kill you.
Yeah.
And this doesn't do well for Arthur either. He tried to talk to him you're my dad. Finally, I can have a dad. And also, I just want... He says, I just want a hug, some fatherly love. What is it with everybody in this city? Nobody cares for anyone anymore, and nobody's nice. And of course Thomas Wayne's still not nice to him, so
right.
He ends up being investigated by these two cops, and they can't really get a hold of him, but they question his mother. Leads to her ending up in the hospital. She becomes hysteric with the line of questioning and
has a stroke.
Yes. So while she's in the hospital, he goes to Arkham State Hospital to get his mother's file to see if it's true that he was adopted and that his mother is crazy, like Thomas Wayne is saying. This guy that is the clerk of the files there, I did want to say it's so sad and uncomfortable because he's having this conversation with this guy, a very normal conversation to start out, oh, crazy world out there, I hear you, that kind of bullshit. And then he says to him, yeah, the last time, I got real mad, I took it out on 3 people. He's basically admitting to killing these people. And he thinks it's a normal conversation. It's he can't pick up on social cues, and he's just trying to relate to this guy, and he felt for a moment that they might relate.
Right.
But the clerk's hey man, I think you need to talk to somebody. And also he reads his mother's file, and as he's reading it, he's seeing all this horrible shit, and he tells Arthur, you know what, actually, I can't let you have this, you have to get your mother to sign off on it. And Arthur reaches through the thing, steals the file. The file says that yes, he's adopted, yes, his mom's crazy, and the reason he has this brain injury is because he was abused by his mother's boyfriend.
And beat in the head and tied to a radiator.
Yeah, all this horrible shit, and
It tells you this through a flashback. He's reading the file and it flashes back to a young Penny in Arkham, and they're telling her all of these things.
Yes, but he's also standing there in that flashbacks, which makes me think it's not necessarily a flashback so much as it's more of his
reimagination. Yeah.
But it also brings up the question, is it real, or did Thomas Wayne would absolutely have the power to make all this up?
Well, doesn't the Waynes own Arkham? Because it's his, in certain forms of the comic, it's Martha's family owns Arkham.
I think there is.
Because Martha was, there or something.
They definitely have ties to it and stuff, and so there's no reason why he couldn't make this up.
I'll tell you why I think that he made it up. So, Arthur is going through his mother's things, and he finds a picture of his mom. And on the back of the picture, it says, "I love your smile, TW."
Yeah.
For Thomas Wayne. So I feel like the mom wasn't crazy. She's always telling the truth. But Thomas Wayne had it arranged to have her lobotomized and then set the scene to make it seem like Arthur was adopted and Thomas Wayne had some people actually beat Arthur.
Yeah, I kind of thought that too. Like, I believe that Arthur is Thomas Wayne's son.
I do too.
So he ends up killing his mother. He goes to the hospital and suffocates her with a pillow. He also goes to Sophie, his neighbor's house, because he thinks that they're dating. And she comes out and is like, what are you doing here? Like, you need to leave. This is when you realize, and he realizes that they're not in a relationship. They've never spoken past that one moment. And I also thought, like, it's such a terrifying thing to me that when she walks out and says, like, I really need you to leave, his response to that is, I had a bad day. Can you imagine, like, if somebody broke into your house and you were like, get out, and they say, I had a bad day?
Yeah.
Like, it seems like
it's
a threat.
So scary. I do want to say that during all of this time, he's getting ready to go on to the Murray Show because there was a lot of people who really loved the clip that they played of him at the comedy club on the Murray Show, and he's accepted an invitation.
Yes.
So the next time you see him, he's in his apartment dyeing his hair green and putting clown makeup on, which is the more traditional Joker look, is what he's trying to
like
start to emulate. Dyed green hair.
Face paint.
Yeah, face makeup
or,
on.
White skin.
But all of the people in the town have started to wear these clown masks because Thomas Wayne called anybody who was not the upper class clowns. And so he has sparked people wearing clown masks and
from him
protesting.
Killing the people in the subway. Like, it started this uprising of people wearing these Joker masks. Yeah, so he's getting ready to go on Murray Franklin, and Randall, the guy that sold him the gun that he used to work with, and another coworker of his, Gary, actually show up to his house. Randall's only there because they've been getting questioned by the cops
about the gun that Randall gave him.
Yeah, and he's basically trying to, like, force Arthur to be like, oh, I didn't say nothing, I won't say anything, it wasn't you. And Arthur ends up stabbing him with scissors and fucking brutally murders Randall right there. And this whole time, he's also planning to kill himself on Murray Franklin. You see him, like, rehearsing doing that. So he's got nothing left to lose in his mind. He killed his mom. He kills this guy, Randall. He lets Gary go. He says Gary was always nice to him.
He's like, Gary, you know why you get to leave? And he's like, why? He's like, you were the only one that was ever nice to me or something.
Yeah. So he leaves his apartment. He's dancing down the staircase. Very famous scene.
It's so good.
Yes.
It's because you can tell in that moment he's truly lost it.
He's
and
changed.
Become the Joker.
Yeah. He's a different person.
The true Batman Joker.
Yes. He gets on Murray Franklin.
Yeah.
And, he tells Murray in a very threatening way, I felt. He's like, oh, hey, when you introduce me, can you introduce me as the Joker? Because that's what you called me when you first showed my clip.
Yeah, Joker.
And Murray's just like, oh, yeah, Joker, not the Joker.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, okay, whatever. And they bring him out there. He, again, is initially planning to kill himself, but he ends up trying to, like, do that. His plan was to say knock, knock, and then shoot himself.
Yeah.
When the person said what? But they're making fun of him the entire time. He gets on there, he says knock knock, and they're like, oh, you had to look that up? And he's like, I want to get it right. And he ends up admitting that he killed the 3 people on the subway. They do actually believe him, and it turns into this whole thing. It's this long, and I'll say, like, tragically beautiful speech of him talking about how nobody is nice in this city. Nobody is nice to him. Nobody cares about anyone. Nobody cares about each other. Everybody screams all the time. And that they only care about these people because Thomas Wayne, a rich man, said to. If it were him, they'd step right over him. And he calls Murray awful. And at the end of the speech, he says, I'm going to tell you a joke. And Murray's like, no, I don't think so. Let's call the police. That's when he says, what do you get when you cross a mentally ill loner with a society that abandons him and treats him like trash? And he says, you get what you fucking deserve. And he shoots Murray in the head.
It was absolutely a shocking, jaw-dropping scene the very first time I ever saw it.
I was not at all expecting that. Like,
I wasn't either.
And plus, not only was I not expecting it, you don't have time to think about what's going to happen. It's such like you're so tense with this speech, you're like freaking out.
Like, what's going to happen? And also, this sounds horrible, but you're almost on his side.
And that's a hard thing about the movie is, he's bad and he's doing wrong, but it's in such a sympathetic way. Even in today's world, I do sometimes you feel like, why is nobody nice? And granted, no thoughts have ever come to my head of doing something like him. But you can imagine being this mentally ill, losing funding for your medication, finding out this shit about your mom, losing your job. Like, this is all in the span of like a fucking week.
Yeah, it'd make anybody go crazy. I do want to say after that, it shows the city go into chaos and he's in the back of a police car. And the police car is driving down the street. I don't know if you noticed this the entire movie. The entire movie, there's a very eerie, kind of creepy music playing. It kind of almost makes your stomach churn a little bit because when the music becomes more intense, you know something is about to happen. But this is the first song of the entire movie that had lyrics.
I didn't really think of that, yeah. I mean, mostly it's just the score playing.
Yeah. And so it was the only song of the movie that had lyrics is when he's in the back of the cop car. And I just thought that it was done really well and it was cool.
Yeah. Well, the cop car gets hit by a guy driving an ambulance. He's one of the protesters. They realize it's Arthur Fleck in the back, and they pull him out, and they, like, raise him up as, like, this, you know, figure to them. Like,
yeah.
They worship him. And during this scene, you also see that Thomas, Martha, and Bruce Wayne were inside a theater, the traditional. They were watching Zorro, and one of the guys that's part of, like, the protesting, or at least wearing one of the clown masks, follows them down an alleyway, robs them, kills Thomas and Martha Wayne. It leaves Bruce. And then, you know, we see Arthur is in Arkham State Hospital. He seemingly kills his psychiatrist, and it kind of just ends like that. This film is the first R-rated movie in history to make $1 billion worldwide, which,
well deserved.
I gave it a 5 out of 5.
I also did.
Like, the first time I saw it, I thought it was amazing. I thought maybe I would feel differently watching it again so many years later, but it is such a good, like, I mean, I don't want to say it's a good take on mental illness. Not everybody's like this, obviously, and most people aren't, but it's a beautiful look at it in, like, such a tragic way. It's less of a DC Batman movie and more of just, like, this psychological thriller.
Yeah, I agree.
And it makes you feel so many type of ways, like, you're crying for this man, knowing that he isn't right and shouldn't be doing this, and it's just crazy.
It is. I also gave it a 5 out of 5 for the same reason.
Okay, so this movie, obviously, the whole time Arthur is trying to be a stand-up comedian. You know, he's telling these dark jokes. One of my favorites is, I hope my death makes more sense than my life. And the
sense, like money. Haha.
Yes. I looked up some dark jokes to tell you, and initially I was gonna see, like, let me find the darkest jokes I can. A lot of them were just fucking, like, racist, and so I didn't go with that. What I instead found was the Today Show's website posted a list of jokes that they were like, top 25 dark humor jokes, and I'm reading this list, and it's like those fucking memes, if anyone's ever seen them, where it'll say something stupid, and then it'll have, like, a picture of, like, a werewolf, and it'll say, like, calm down, it's called dark humor.
Oh.
So let me just tell you them.
Okay.
Bacon and eggs walk into a bar. The bartender says, sorry, we don't serve breakfast here. Ooh, edgy. Did you hear about the elderly man who fell into a well? Apparently he couldn't see that well. I once thought about studying sodium, then I thought, nah.
I wish everyone could see my face.
What do you call someone who loves Mondays? Retired. What do you call a dog with no legs? Doesn't matter, he's not coming anyway. Anyway, that's just some of my dark humor, you know? It might be a little too edgy for some of you folks out there.
We've got Edgelord McGee in the room.
The Today Show literally has that posted still.
That's embarrassing for them.
So obviously the Joker sequel is coming out soon. What is your sequel?
It's a direct sequel. It's called Joker 2, Electric Boogaloo. I actually don't know the title, really. It's kind of tough.
Well, it's being listed as Joker 2 in the polls.
I might think of something. Maybe, like, I got it. Joker. Something about a brother. Like, I don't know. Have something brother in the title. You can help me think of it, okay?
I'm gonna write Joker and their two brothers.
How about Jokers with a Z?
Oh, God. Okay.
Anyways, Joker 2, Return of
Madness
the Joker.
for 2.
Joker 2, Return of the Joker.
Return?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways, I don't know. You're gonna help me come up with the title. And that's what's going in the polls.
Okay.
I'm just not good with titles.
I think you've been good with titles before.
This one was hard.
Sometimes they are.
You'll see why when I tell you what it is. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
I think it should start where it left off, where you know how he kills the psychiatrist. I think he escapes Arkham. Everyone is praising Arthur, and I'm gonna use his name Arthur because I think that what I liked about the movie was that sometimes he was Arthur and sometimes he was Joker. Anyways, praising Arthur and looking at him as the new god and boss of Gotham. Arthur loves the newfound fame, and there'll be scenes, I think, where he's portraying himself as the Joker, but then at home as Arthur, he's talking to himself about it, practicing with how he should be out in public. He gets caught by the police and sent to Arkham Asylum and starts working with Dr. Harleen Quinzel. In the hallway one day, as he's working and unable to escape because he's become infatuated with Dr. Quinzel, obviously, he sees none other than Bruce Wayne walking by. He ends up following and sees that Bruce Wayne sees Dr. Harleen for therapy since his parents died and his parents owned Arkham in some way. So they've secretly been getting him care there for seeing his parents murdered. Joker realizes that he wants Bruce to be his brother because he ultimately still thinks that Thomas Wayne is his father. Bruce ends up avoiding Arthur and escaping multiple times, which angers him. Meanwhile, Arthur has started to manipulate. I typed Harry, I meant Harley. Okay. Typed Harley to becoming crazy like him so he can get her. He can use her to get to Bruce. Arthur, once Harleen changes and, becomes Harley Quinn, as we all know, Arthur is able to kidnap Bruce. And they start acting like they're his family since his parents are dead and their siblings. And they're going to raise him as their little brother / son. You know where I'm going, I think. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you want to finish it for me?
No.
Are you sure? Okay.
And then Superman comes in.
Yeah. Bruce resists and he does escape, but is caught by some of Joker's people out and about in the street and is brought back. All of the while all of this is happening, Alfred is looking for Bruce all of this time working with Detective Gordon.
Ooh.
Yeah. So they're working together trying to find Bruce, but keep it on the down low because they don't want the rest of Wayne Enterprises to know that Bruce is missing. And when they find Bruce, he's dressed up in makeup in a suit and evil, laughing and dancing with the Joker and Harley Quinn. You know how the Joker danced in this movie. That's the dance that they're all doing together. Mm-hmm. A fight ensues and Bruce is fighting Alfred and Gordon because he's obviously been manipulated at this point. Alfred is ultimately able to get Bruce back while Gordon and him also defeat Joker and Harley, who are arrested and taken back to Arkham. Bruce is still under the spell of the Joker, and Alfred decides Bruce will never be safe unless he learns to fight for himself. He decides to send him away, and he's taken to a random location. Where is he going?
The League of Assassins?
He sure is. But just Ra's al Ghul is going to be standing there. And then Alfred sends him away to train with the League of Assassins. At the end, you can flash to the Joker and Harley Quinn laughing together as they're thinking of different ways to kill everyone and escape Arkham. Period. And
nice.
What's the title? Joker 2, Return of the Joker.
Joker. Jokes. Again.
You think you're a little jokey jokester?
Joker. Jokes on 2. Like you, but 2.
Focus on Dua.
Joker, son of the Joker. I think you're gonna need to stick with Joker 2 on this one.
Yeah, it's a hard, see what I'm saying? It's kind of hard to come up with a title for it, but...
Yeah.
What's your sequel? Is it the same? Everyone, we have a bet going that we'll have the same sequel.
It's not.
It happened with Batman, but that episode was never released.
Okay, so mine is called Joker, One Bad Day.
Ooh.
Arthur Fleck has been living in Arkham State Hospital for the past few months since his arrest. He has been forced back onto medication and is working with a new psychiatrist, Dr. Quinzel.
Oh.
Arthur is worshipped in the hospital as many still view him as a hero, and Gotham has gotten even worse since the murder of the Waynes. Arthur eventually meets a new patient, Jack Oswald White. Jack is a big fan of Arthur's and immediately gravitates towards him. Arthur was glad to have a friend, but Jack was a lot more erratic than Arthur was ready to deal with. Every day, Jack seemed to up the ante with causing chaos in the hospital, whether it's starting riots, terrorizing the most mentally ill patients, playing pranks, or attacking staff. Jack also continued to push Arthur into being his true self, starting with not taking his medication anymore. Arthur listens to Jack as he begins to see him as his only friend. While many seem to worship him, he doesn't feel close to anyone but Jack. Jack tells Arthur they're going to escape together because Gotham needs the Joker. In order to escape, Jack comes up with a plan to kill Dr. Quinzel, forcing Arthur to be moved to a different facility, and on the outside, Joker worshippers would be waiting to stop the convoy moving him. Arthur is very unsure of this as he has grown to like Dr. Quinzel and even feels like she is listening to him finally. Eventually, Arthur tells Jack no and claims that he is not this Joker that everyone believes him to be. He just had one bad day that landed him here. Arthur now plans to return to his medication and just wants to die. Jack gets angry and attacks Arthur before being taken away by the orderlies. Jack plans to inform Dr. Quinzel at his morning appointment about how he stopped his medication and would like to properly adjust to taking it again. During his appointment, Jack somehow rushes in the room and attacks Dr. Quinzel, choking her. Arthur panics and grabs Jack by his throat and begins strangling him to death. As he is watching the life from Jack's eyes leave, the eye contact they have puts things into focus for Arthur. We start to see flashbacks and realize Jack is not real. Jack is Arthur, and everything he believed the wild and crazed Jack to have done has been his true nature as the Joker. Before Arthur can comprehend what's happening, he's dragged away by guards who throw him into solitary confinement until the following morning when he is being put in a truck to be transported. Arthur is begging them to tell him what happened to Dr. Quinzel until he looks around the truck and realizes some of the guards are removing their police gear and donning instead clown masks. The other guards question what's going on and are shot dead by the Joker worshippers, splattering blood onto Arthur's face. Arthur looks at himself in the rearview mirror at the front of the police truck and realizes the driver is Dr. Quinzel, also wearing a clown mask. At this point, he sees Jack in the mirror beside him. Jack reaches over and spreads the blood splattered on Arthur's face into a smile.
Ooh, I like that. That's definitely better than mine.
You don't know.
I do. That's really good.
Well, thank you. And thank you so much for listening. We do so appreciate it. If you want to talk movies with us, you can find us on TikTok, Instagram, Letterboxd, Threads, and Twitter. We are NansPod everywhere.
NansPod.
If you'd like to vote on whose sequel idea was the best, come by our YouTube channel for the polls, or let us know your idea across our socials with a comment, tweet, or you can reach us at needlesssequel@gmail.com. Links, as always, will be wherever you are listening. If you wouldn't mind, share a show with someone, leave us a review, and come back for more. We'd love to have you and hear what we can do to improve. Next week, we're watching Terrifier on Prime in order to prepare for Terrifier 3.
Ooh.
She says that, but she's forgetting this is the clown movie.
I don't like clowns. I'm afraid of clowns, and he's making me watch it.
Well, I don't like gore, and this movie's all about gore. So, we're going to have a hell of a time. All right, take care of yourselves. We'll see you next week, and always remember, that's life.
Bye.